This is the third video in my Magneto series. We've covered how the comics kept him young and how the movies could do the same. In this video, we'll look at what would probably be the easiest to do: change his history. Welcome to the Review Desk. I'm Desmond Kerk, and today I'd like to discuss if it's time for a more diverse Magneto. For Magneto to be a Holocaust survivor with most of his history intact, he would need to be 100 years old at the time of Captain America: Brave New World. Now, there are ways to circumvent this. It could be stated that mutants in the MCU age at a slower rate. He could be from a universe where time moves differently, and it's not yet 2023. Magneto, a man of genius-level intellect in the comics, could even be said to have found means to extend his life in his effort to attain peace for mutants. However, this presents a more interesting alternative. What if Magneto's history was changed to a more recent tragedy in history? During the civil rights movements in the United States, many African American citizens were killed. A child who reached puberty around 1965 would now be in their late 50s, a perfect age for Magneto. If the studio wanted him to be even younger, he could be a survivor of the Gulf War, where citizens of Kuwait had their country invaded and suffered many casualties. Iraqi citizens suffered great losses as well. While it has been established that ethnically Jewish people resided in Iraq around the time of the war, this would present an opportunity to make Magneto a Muslim, since this group of people has suffered an influx in prejudice since the September 11 attacks. Tensions between Israel and the state of Palestine could make turning a famously Jewish character to a Muslim a very controversial issue. It could also lead to unnecessary comparisons of which tragedy was more horrendous, which is a moot point in itself. Many find that Magneto being Jewish is such an integral part of who he is that it cannot and should not be changed. Magneto, however, was not always Jewish. Enter Chris Claremont. Believe it or not, Marvel's mutants were not always the media powerhouse they are today. The X-Men had been cancelled in 1970 due to lukewarm reception and poor sales. The series was relaunched in 1975 as Giant-Size X-Men and was later renamed Uncanny X-Men, with Claremont taking over writing duties in the same year. He would go on to write Uncanny X-Men up to 1991, giving him one of the longest and most celebrated stints in the history of comics. It was during this time that Claremont decided to feature Magneto more prominently and delve deeper into the history of Magneto and sought to give the character more depth. As he stated, every significant book at Marvel had its key antagonist. The Fantastic Four had Doctor Doom, Spider-Man had Doc Ock, amongst others. Without Magneto, the X-Men had nobody. Chris Claremont himself is of Jewish descent. In 1971, he lived in Israel and researched the history of the Holocaust. This inspired him to make Magneto a Holocaust survivor, which is first hinted at in Uncanny X-Men issue 150, by which time Magneto had only had 36 appearances in the X-Men comics. Magneto at first makes a vague statement about his people being wiped out through genocide, and at the end of the issue mentions Auschwitz. Seeing how his people were exterminated during the Holocaust, along with other groups that were deemed ethnically and socially inferior by the Nazis, Magneto vowed to prevent this from happening to his fellow mutants and set out to conquer mankind. The important thing to remember here is that while Magneto is Jewish, he considers himself a mutant first. He does not only fight for mutants of Jewish descent, and he considers Jewish humans the same as any other humans, inferior. As long as the Magneto we will eventually see in the MCU fights the good fight for the freedom of mutants, he will at his core still be the same character. One thing is for certain, that however he's introduced, Feige and his team at Marvel Studios will put the most effort into it, as they always have. Now, I'll be honest, I know it's not that simple a matter to accept. While I enjoyed Marvel's Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Norman Osborn being African American felt kind of off. We are dealing with a variant from another universe, but it still took some getting used to. The same will probably be the issue with any eventual changes to Magneto. What do you think? Can Magneto's ancestry be changed? Or is it too much of a defining characteristic that changing it would border on injustice? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.